Okay, so presentation for Module 2. I want to do a couple of things before we get started. I'll give you a little bit of feedback on Module 1. Introduce what I expect will be some of the issues as it relates to Module 2, namely the readings and the assignments, and then I want to do some key points for review, and I have some PowerPoint slides that I'll probably have to do in a couple of different presentations. As I push them out to YouTube, I am restricted by time limit. So giving you some feedback on Module 1, I think the discussions were absolutely fantastic. I do want to make sure that you continue to engage each other in the discussion modules, but also be sure to bring in outside references as far as your responses. Your opinions are great and absolutely valued, but we want to make sure that we continue to introduce new resources and new ideas and new concepts from third parties, i.e. a journal article that perhaps you read or something along the lines. So as you do your discussion modules, your original posting, you all did a fantastic job of citing references, textbook and required reading, but also look for third parties references outside of the required readings, and then also in your responses as well. I appreciate the courtesy that you've all shown each other, but be sure that we include outside resources. Module 2, you know that you have a couple of discussions that are there. This is really kind of a network-based module where we're going to be looking at some key concepts as far as network technologies and those kinds of things. Reading level, significant amount of reading that needs to be done, but I would really like you to pay attention to the readings that are associated with policy, and as well as system development life cycle that I have some information for you on today. As far as the network and network topography types of things, I think those are more for reference and informational. Maybe be familiar with the types of tools there. I think you're going to do some stuff on routers and maybe firewalls and those kinds of things as far as the technologies as it relates to networking, and then things like the types of cabling and that kind of thing. So think of those as more of references rather than things that you have to really delve into. But we will talk about some of the weaknesses associated with each of that technology, and then I'm going to put together a bunch of slides on some things that I think that I want you to know about, and I'm going to go through those. And then, make sure that you pay attention to your writings today or this week. You have that paper. It's 5 pages, not including title page and references. Double-spaced, 12.5. Make sure that you're familiar with APA format, as we want to make sure that we give credit to those individuals that came before us. And other than that, if you have any questions, you want me to go ahead and you want me to look it over before you submit it, feel free to send it to me. Okay, so pay attention to the readings. Make sure that you work on those assignments. And again, if you want me to read a draft of your paper prior to the submission, get that to me, early enough to give me a chance to look at it, review it, make some comments, and get it back to you. And then let's get into some of the key pieces of information that I think we should be aware of coming up for the next module. Okay, so real brief introduction. The creation of an information security program really begins with the information security blueprint. But before we can talk about that, we need to discuss the creation and development of the blueprint. It's important for us to look at management's responsibility in shaping an organization's policy. And I think some of your reading is going to focus on the role that policy plays. It's prudent for information security professionals to know the information security policies and how these policies contribute to the overall objectives of an organization. If we look at information security planning and governance across an organization, really what we're talking about here is a set of responsibilities and practices that should be exercised by the board and the executive management, and then we get the top-down effect where these board policies really provide us with a good strategic direction and make sure that there are objectives in place that can be achieved, and also that the creation of a risk management process and making sure that the entire information security program is managed appropriately and is implemented responsibly. Really, 5 goals of any information security governance should be make sure that information security is strategically aligned with the organization's objectives. It should be firmly grounded in risk management. Take a very close look at resource management and as well as performance measures, and make sure that we have a very value-driven type of operation as it relates to cybersecurity or information security within an organization. Management from all the communities of interest in a particular organization must consider policies as the basis for all information security planning, design, and development. Policy really directs how issues should be addressed, and the technology and technologies used, not cover the specifics on the proper operations of equipment and software. So the difference being is, a policy really is a high level approach to a particular issue where standards and guidelines would really talk about the types of technology and how they should be implemented and how they should be used. A policy is much more general. And information security is primarily management rather than a technical problem. Policy guides personnel to function in a manner that would add to the security of its information assets. Security policies are obviously the least expensive control to execute, but often the most difficult to implement. In general, when we look at creating a policy, we must make sure that those policies that we create never conflict with laws. In other words, we can't allow illegal behavior via a policy. They can stand up in court if they're ever challenged, maybe from a wrongful termination suit or an external third party, and have to be properly administered, including thorough dissemination and documentation from personnel showing that they have read the policies. And this is a real issue for global organizations where they might have policies that need to be translated across different languages or implemented over different cultures. And we need to be able to make sure that the individuals that we're going to hold accountable for these things have indeed seen them and actually acknowledged reading them. So information security policies can be difficult to create if we do not take the time to recognize that. A couple of quick definitions for you. Policy is basically a plan or a course of action intended to influence and determine decisions, actions, and other matters. Policies can be viewed as the organization's laws. They must contain information on what is right and what is not, what the penalties are for violating policies, and then what the process for the individual that might be sanctioned has the right to, we should follow for any type of appeal. Standards, on the other hand, are more detailed statements that what must be done to comply with the policy. So policies are very general. Think of it as an organization's constitution. Standards really are much more detailed and really tell the organization and individuals within the organization what they have to do to comply with those policies. Practices and procedures and guidelines effectively explain how to comply with that policy, and then, for a policy to be effective, it must be properly disseminated. I mentioned that previously. It has to be able to be shown that the individual had access to it, read it, understood it, and agreed to all the members, and agreed to by all the members of the organization. And it has to be uniformly enforced. A little graphical representation of how we would expect the policy would work or should flow. And again, policies drive standards, which drive practices, procedures, and guidelines.